everybody? Welcome to PFF's live NFL preview show. So glad that you guys are here hanging out with us on the desk. Hope you guys had a great holiday, celebrating in your favorite way, whatever that is. I got Sam Monson, Ian Hartitz, Eric Eager here with me on the show. Fellas, love the Christmas sweaters. Let's go around. What do we got here? We got a reindeer.
Rudolph.
Okay, we got some Rudolph action.
Merry Desmas, Merry Xmas.
Oh,
Nice.
Look at that. Throw up the X. Look at that. Eric, where do we get the sweater?
I think we're looking at the dark horse in the NFC here, the Dallas Cowboys.
Ah, that's good. That's actually great. I have my dog. My dog is, I have a custom Christmas sweater with my dog on it, which I'm not allowed to call it ugly. My dog's, very handsome.
And you ordered that. This was your idea.
This is true. This is very true. The Christmas sweaters was Ian's idea, so I got to give him the shout out. Hopefully, you guys have a little bit of Christmas spirit still in you, even though it was yesterday. We got a lot of games that we're going to preview. Big time matchups, and I feel like we say this every week, but the further we get into the season, the less games we have yet to play. Eric is right. It is huge. Every single week, every single game, major playoff implications, division title implications, and standing. Where we see these teams, how we see them playing out. We're covering all the games with all the big bets. That's coming to you. Guys, how was your Christmas, though? Before I get to it, how was the 25th? How was Saturday? You guys make a big meal? Sam, did I overhear that you were cooking yesterday?
Yeah.
Doing a little bit of cooking action?
In honor of John Madden, we cooked turducken. Smoked it on
Wow.
the thing. I wasn't paying attention to the size of the turducken when I ordered it, so it turns out 17 pounds worth of turducken may have been overkill.
It's like a bowling ball of food.
How many people were eating that?
6.
You're going to be eating leftovers
For about a week and a
longer
half,
Thanksgiving, dude.
That's like 3 pounds a person.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Look, I told you I was numerous. You questioned it.
Yeah.
Look, I know, some teams need some O-line help, but I don't think this is the way to do it, man. What about you guys? You guys do any special food things? I know some people have like that Chinese food tradition where they like do
Christmas
takeout.
Eve. Chinese,
Okay, so that's
did
Christmas
Eve. Steak and scallops on Christmas.
Wow.
One reason, I like steak, I like scallops.
That's a good
I was
reason.
That's the reason. That's all the reason you need. What do you mean?
We were gifted the treasure that was Baker Mayfield,
Yes.
Carson
Yes,
Wentz.
Yes.
And I don't know if anybody here is a college football fan. I know you are, Trevor. Drew Plitt.
Wow.
Incomplete was Drew Plitt yesterday.
Wow.
The ball.
This is true. we all left Saturday full because of the games that we had yesterday. Browns, Packers, Colts, Cardinals were the two games that we had on the Saturday slate. Just real quick, thoughts from that. Colts obviously get the big win. Baker almost pulling it out in Lambeau to be a winning Lambeau guy, but
you can't shake the. I mean, there's few traits that are immutable in this world.
Yes.
One of them is whether you're a winning Lambeau guy.
And there is no almost. It's yes or no. And he's definitively no.
So we have, from this result, Browns now drop to the bottom of that division, although they still have a chance to win it, which is funny enough. Packers, though, big-time driver's seat for that number 1 overall seed, which is huge because you get home field advantage. You make these quarterbacks be winning Lambeau quarterbacks. You obviously get the bye, which is big. What was the biggest takeaway? Was it from that game with the results that were there, or was it maybe Indianapolis getting the win over the Cardinals? What do you guys think? What was the biggest takeaway from those two games on Saturday?
I think they were both huge, but the Baker Mayfield thing, it's just getting depressing at this point. It's like you had so many opportunities in that game to just not be, you. And you couldn't do it. Late in the game,
has Baker Mayfield ever thought about not being him in big spots?
He's had so many drives this season where it's like 2-minute drive either before the half or before the end of the game to change the whole outcome. Didn't happen.
If you're a Browns fan, are you happy with? You're not obviously not happy.
No.
Like generally, but but with this outcome, because you're right, Sam. Like they get an extra drive yesterday.
Right. Are you rooting for the reset button
Exactly.
at this point?
They lose a game in Pittsburgh that they should have probably won. They've had a game like that game in Baltimore on Sunday Night Football, ugly as heck. Baker shows up and they win that game. There's a number of times there's like what if type of situations, but ultimately you come up for air and you look at that team and you're thinking, does that team have a shot in hell in the playoffs? Answer's probably no. So would you rather be definitive about needing to hit the reset button than going into another year of Baker Mayfield?
Right. And I think that's a lot of people are along that same thinking. And we've talked about this for a long time, and it seems as though we just continue to get closer to Baker's not the answer, but we all, of course, are still trying to
To be
hold on
fair,
for it.
he is now tied with Beckham. I brought this up, but since they got rid of Beckham, Baker now has 3 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns to wide receivers, and OBJ has 3, so they're tied now.
So Cleveland's at the bottom of this division right now. Bengals are at the top. Then it's Baltimore. Baltimore losing that top spot finally after a long skid that they've had over the last month or so. Steelers, and then it's the Browns. Who do we have the most confidence in the Bengals? Who's going to win that division at this point?
The best coach is in Baltimore. The problem is it's not that it might be after you grade all the players the worst roster of the group, but it is it's not that different, right? The crazy thing is as you said, Trevor, like if the Browns were to win out and go 9-8. That would include a win over Cincinnati and hence a sweep of Cincinnati. Cincinnati somehow has to finish 9-8 for that to happen. And then, I guess it would be Cincinnati would get a win today and then lose out. And then Pittsburgh doesn't matter. But like that's sort of like the 9-8 dream of the Cleveland Browns where they finish the same record as Cincinnati. The Ravens lose at least one more and then we're still seeing the Browns. It's crazy that we still have that option, whereas today's game is a huge leverage spot, but it's not definitive as to who's going to win the division, weirdly.
So let's use that as a transition to look at the entire AFC picture right now. Let's look at the standings, see who's at the top. With that number 1 seed, Titans at 2, Patriots at 3. We then have the Bengals at 4, Colts at 5, Chargers 6, Bills at 7. Right on the bubble, we have teams like the Ravens who were once in, the Steelers still hanging around, Raiders, I don't think a lot of people have confidence in them. Don't look now, Miami Dolphins, winners of 6 in a row. 6 people, it's insane. The Dolphins are just coming up out of nowhere. And obviously we have the Browns on the outside looking in as well. When you guys look at those standings there, what really stands out to you, whether it's the teams that are currently in or those teams on the bubble?
How about, we just talked about the Saturday games, but the Titans, look what having AJB back can do for a passing game. I mean, it had been months since Ryan Tannehill really showed us anything, and I get it, you don't have Derrick Henry, defense is going to treat you different, but 16 targets for A.J. Brown. We've been dying for them to feed him this sort of workload, really for his entire career, because he's always been one of the most efficient receivers in the game. Derrick Henry's getting closer and closer. Like, we talk about the Colts being a team no one wants to play in the winter, but the Titans, man, at full strength, I think they're even a step above because we know Tannehill can give us a little more than once.
Well, if they hit it right, then this is a team that's going to make the playoffs, and then, like you said, maybe get Derrick Henry back. And it looked like for a minute there wasn't a lot of faith in the Titans to make the playoffs. It looked like the skid was going to keep them out with. We just asked ourselves, how much can they take? How much can you take away from this team and they still make it in the playoffs? It looks like they're going to. Yeah. If that's the case, they might be getting some reinforcements.
I was trying to think of the word to describe some of the wins that Tennessee have had, because they're not necessarily impressive. Like this one required Jimmy G to start throwing them the ball with regularity for them to get away with it. But the teams they beat during their run of victories, then teams like the 49ers, they've had these real sort of statement wins where they have to be taken seriously, even if there's some serious things wrong with them.
Yeah, they're perseverance wins. They're not impressive. They're not but they just outlast the other team while the other team just completely makes errors. And they have not an inside track at the 1 seed, but a legitimate shot at it, right? If they were to win out, it's not that hard for them in the AFC South to win out. Patriots, lose one more game. They play Buffalo this week, and Kansas City loses one more game. The Titans have the tiebreaker over the Chiefs. I mean, they would have the 1 seed, and then you're talking about getting Derrick Henry back. You already got Jones and Brown back.
Right.
Offensive line needs some reinforcements. They were out left tackle and left guard last week, and then the defense is not very good, but it does get key turnovers when it has to.
You can do this for every team in the NFL this season, but imagine if they just didn't implode in the fourth quarter against Pittsburgh, who dropped that game to a team that had 168 yards of total offense. They would be the team in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed.
So the 2 things that I want to touch on before we move to the NFC is I want to talk a little bit more about the Dolphins. That 6-game win streak. They're 1 game back of a playoff spot right now, 2 back of the division title, which is kind of crazy. Are we believing in the Dolphins at all? Because for their 6 games, I want to give them their credit. They won all 6 games. But their opponents in that streak, we have Houston, Baltimore, the Jets, the Panthers, the Giants, and then the Jets again. So pretty much if you could have your pick of any teams that you would want to play in a 6-game stretch, only team missing is the Jaguars, right? I mean, that's basically the only team that's missing there, and they doubled up on the New York Jets. So how much are we believing in the Dolphins as really an in-the-hunt team, if you will?
I mean, they still have a chance for the AFC East. There's that.
Which is hilarious.
But, they have to. They get another break this week with New Orleans starting Ian Book. It's not all that unprecedented. Tua's played okay. I mean, he did have a pick 6 last week, but for the most part, he's playing well.
They're this year's Washington.
Tua's way better than whatever Washington was trotting out there last year. Alex Smith, erector set as a leg. Heineke played the playoff game.
I know,
and cooked,
and almost beat Tampa.
That was an anomaly. Yeah,
I mean, is Tua almost beating Tampa? I don't know.
The football team was starting Kyle Allen.
Glasses are still
the glasses came
Kyle
off.
Allen and Alex Smith. Did you see Alex Smith
number 1 overall
direct
pick
offense last year?
Tua makes 2 horrendous throws a game that you usually see on Red Zone because no one's like watching these full Dolphins games. So everyone thinks Tua's terrible because you see his 2 terrible interceptions. Usually better the rest of the game.
7 straight wins for the Kansas City Chiefs since that loss to the Tennessee Titans. Eric, you know this Chiefs team better than anybody. You know a lot of Chiefs teams better than anybody because you follow them so closely. What's better, 2021 Chiefs or the 2019 Chiefs? Which team do you think is better? Who are you guys taking? I'll open that to you guys, too.
They're playing on a neutral field.
Because that's the Super Bowl team,
I think the
obviously,
2019 Chiefs are favored on a neutral against the 2021 team.
Okay, all right. So
I
a little
think they're
Madden
similar.
Simulation, this same team versus this same team.
But I think, interestingly, if you would have, the 2020 team would have been favored against both.
Who's wearing red and who's wearing white?
Well, that's it. I mean, that's the thing.
That's just what it comes down to.
That's really what this season boils down to, is whether the Chiefs are wearing home red or road white in that big game. We have to call it the big game. In the big game.
Of course, yeah.
But their defense has played really well. They're 8th in scoring allowed. They outlasted a Chargers team that they probably should have lost to last week. And they have an inside track at another division title. They have an inside track in number 1 seed. They do have a tough road, though. I mean, Pittsburgh's no cupcake, and then they go here to Cincinnati, and then they finish at Denver. Like the goal should be to win out to get the 1 seed.
Right.
It's not all that certain that they will, though.
I think when you look at this year's Chiefs team versus the 2019 Chiefs team, I felt like, especially at their best, the Chiefs team a couple of years ago was just playing with a lot more confidence, right? And I don't want to be too much of a prisoner of the moment, and we put these lofty expectations on the Chiefs, and it was almost impossible for anyone to live up to them. But I still feel as though, even though this year's Chiefs team, they're winning games, it's like, okay, they're not quite there. They're winning them, but it's not in the way that we thought the Chiefs were, say, back when they were really rolling in 2019. So, I don't know. I'd probably...
Well, the best version of this offense was during that playoff stretch when, Kelsey, Hill, Mahomes were going nuts. But so is Sammy Watkins. And they really still have... They tried to take McCole Hardman, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They used all these high-round draft picks to get other weapons. Sammy Watkins has been their best third option in that offense. Now, paying whatever it was, $45-50 million for him to be a third.
You can do that when the guy's the 10th overall pick at quarterback. You can make mistakes that way, right? It's like you're the Yankees in that sense when you can just write off bad contracts. But yeah, Sammy Watkins, 2 AFC title games, both were 100-yard games for the Chiefs. The Super Bowl against the Niners, a 100-yard game. Like Ian's absolutely right. Like that's the one thing that they're missing, and they don't have it. Like Josh Gordon hasn't been that guy. He did score a touchdown a couple weeks ago.
Shout out.
Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson, like all those guys fall short, and they're lucky today that they at least get Tyreek Hill back from COVID. They do not get Travis Kelce back from COVID today.
Let's flip over to the NFC. We have the Green Bay Packers at the top of this conference, coming off a big home win against the Cleveland Browns last night. We've got the Cowboys sitting there at number 2, Rams at 3, Bucks now at 4, Cardinals now down all the way at number 5 after a really hot start to the season. We've got the 49ers at 6, Vikings at 7. It feels like it's musical chairs every week for who's taking that 6 and 7 spot. Right now it's San Francisco and Minnesota. Then on the bubble, don't look now, we got the Philadelphia Eagles. We got the Saints coming off a shutout win over the Buccaneers. Unbelievable. Washington football teams, they're at 6 and 8. And somehow, some way, by the grace of God, the fighting Cordarrelle Patterson, the Atlanta Falcons sitting there at 6 and 8. Fellas, what do we think about that NFC standing?
We need to draw a line between the New Orleans Saints and Washington. No, the Washington football team and the Atlanta Falcons are not on the bubble. They're done. They are done. They are the Christmas production. The fork has gone in. It's over.
Is the cruise canceled?
The cruise got COVID run across. It's done. Like every other cruise in the world.
Do I get a refund?
COVID took it down.
Can we put that graphic back up? I need to show the good people something.
What is it? What are we showing?
The team that is in the 7th spot, Sam, have you not rooted for this team?
Yeah, but that just means one of the other teams, like the Eagles or the Saints, jump in.
Maybe. Who are the Saints starting?
Washington and Atlanta are not jumping into that team.
Ian Book.
Great name.
It is a great name. Great
This idea that team in the 7th spot has some sort of stranglehold.
No.
That the two teams that are one game beneath them have no shot.
Zero confidence in the Vikings, but it's going to be the Eagles or the Saints that jump into that spot. Washington and Atlanta are not making it. They're not. They're done.
So have you now sold the cruise line to Eric?
No, the cruise line went bankrupt.
Right.
Cruise line, it's done.
Oh.
It got reclaimed.
So it's been seized.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like it's up. Everyone got COVID. It's stranded somewhere. Nobody's allowed on or off the ship, and it's done.
This is dark. I didn't think we were getting here in this show, but it's dark. Another line I want. Okay, so you're drawing the line between the Saints and the Washington football team. Another line that people are kind of drawing, especially with last night, given the records, is the Packers at number 1. And do we think that they are far and away this team that is the, no question about it, favorite to win the NFC? They're going to cruise to the Super Bowl because they've got the 2-game cushion now. Sorry, I did not even mean it. They've obviously now got the 2-game lead. They're probably going to get the 1 seed. Really high chance of that. I believe it's high 80s or 90% chance for them to get that 1 seed. Is it the Packers versus everybody else? Or is it closer than the records might indicate?
It has to be, given how much of a privilege the 1 seed is now that no one else gets the crazy thing about this new playoff format is like that 2 seed. It used to be just such a
it's like worthless.
It's not worthless. And in some ways, like, hear me out here for a sec. Like, we did the analysis where we simulated a bunch of times, and there are a lot of NFL seasons where that 2 seed isn't the better team, right? Like, think about 2 years ago when the Saints got the 3 seed. They were the same record as the Packers, but somehow lost it due to a tiebreaker. And, like, oftentimes what you'll see is that 3 seed win and the 2 seed lose in simulations, and then it sort of reorders things the way it should have been, right? So it is weird. Like, in some ways, the 1 seed grants you a ton of privilege, but at the end of the day, it lines you up with a better team in the NFC title game. So that's a little bit of a trickiness there. But at the same time, when I look at the standings, like, who is it going to be? I think Dallas could be that team who's the most complete one. But for right now, the Packers are it, and they do get a bunch of players back. And that's why when you look at the betting markets, they're 9-2 to win the Super Bowl, tied with Kansas City for the most. Like, they're in the driver's seat, and there really isn't a team right now that you could say is going to compete with them. Now, a month from now, it could be Tampa like last year. It could be the Dallas Cowboys or the Rams or even the Cardinals again. But for now, I think you have to really shoe them in for at least the 3rd consecutive trip to the NFC title game.
You mentioned Ian Book, and Ian Book is starting today because of a multitude of injuries and a lot of guys being placed on the COVID-19 list. He's not just the only one. We have some 2nd string, 3rd string, 4th string guys who are now in this week. We've got Tim Boyle in for Jared Goff. We've got Jake Fromm in for
everybody.
Daniel Jones.
And Mike Lennon.
We've got, that's true, Mike Lennon. We've got Josh Johnson in for the Ravens. And, of course, we have Ian Book for the Saints. Who are you looking forward to most there?
Josh Johnson. Easily.
Yeah, Josh Johnson.
I didn't say who was the best. So who you looking
but I actually
most?
think
I'm looking forward.
We didn't have Drew Lock in there. I would be looking most forward to Drew Lock.
That's right, Drew Lock.
What did you use to describe him before the show?
He is a fun bag. So I had to try to find one stat this offseason to encapsulate the Drew Lock experience. And I call it like the entertainment rating. And what I did was I took the guy with the largest difference in turnover-worthy play rank and big-time throw rate.
Wow.
Drew Lock last year. Before that, it was Jameis in 2019. Before that was Ryan Fitzpatrick in 2018.
Yeah. Yes.
See,
there's a high chance of something significant happening on any
For good or bad.
He keeps both teams in the game. It's the Brett Favre special. Like, I think the Josh Johnson thing can work, right?
Yeah.
Because the Bengals, and shout out to our producer, Ty, like the Bengals, like they're the most frustrating team in football, right? Because it's been right in front of them for the entire season. Like, just win an overtime game against Jimmy G, right? Just beat the Browns. Like, just beat the Bears with Andy Dalton. Like, there's been a number of games where they had been favored. They should have been the team that wins, and for whatever reason they run the ball to Joe Mixon too much, or they can't tackle anybody on defense, and they're 7-point favorites. This number moved from 4. It started at 2.5. right? When we thought Lamar was playing, got to 4.5 when Hundley was playing, and now it's 7 with Josh Johnson playing. So we see like the evolution of quarterbacking and how much each guy's worth. I think Josh Johnson can win this game outright, and unfortunately, that will keep the Bengals probably at arm's length from their first playoff berth since 15.
Hell yeah, baby.
I think he
Josh
can.
Johnson, let's do it. Let's do it. I also loved Ian Book's quote when they asked him, like, oh, did you know you were starting this week? And I think his quote was something along the lines of like, well, I can do math pretty quickly, and when the first 3 guys ahead of me are no longer available, I guess that means that I'm going to get the gig.
It's that ND education, you know?
It's true, you know. Hey, look, senior, God,
rub shoulders with Renner.
Roots for the same university Mike Renner does. I mean, everybody, just a young God looks down upon those kind of people fondly. Something I want to do on this show, because I think it's about that time. Draft picks were taken back, okay? So these are some draft picks. We're doing revisionist history here. We're doing full hindsight. What are some draft picks, whether it's this year or maybe I'll say recent past? Who are some draft picks for teams that you just wish you had a mulligan on, that you could trade one for one? I'm giving you that freedom here. Which draft pick do you want to, in the Christmas season, exchange, right? Ooh. You know, you pick something out, you pick it's a gift, you got the receipt there, but the second your parents aren't looking, you're headed to the store and you're either getting cash or you're exchanging it for something else. What's a draft pick that we're doing that with? Sam, I'll start with you.
I mean, the obvious ones are the quarterbacks on the basis that none of them except Mac Jones have worked out so far.
Mm-hmm. True, you're saying for this past year's draft.
Right, for this most recent draft. But actually, I think you have to look at it, as good as he's been, does Denver want another shot at one of the quarterbacks, given Patrick Surtain is fantastic. He looks incredible. He looks really good for a rookie. But you've just seen the expense of that. Like, you have Teddy Bridgewater for the season. You have Drew Lock coming in. You still have no shot of doing anything without a quarterback. Yeah. So until you get that guy, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, whoever it is in the offseason, unless you have the quarterback, you've got no shot of winning.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of quarterbacks you could sort of change your mind with. I think if you're the Miami Dolphins, you probably want to exchange Tua for Justin Herbert. Even though, like,
that's an obvious one.
If you're the Browns, in hindsight, you probably want to exchange Baker Mayfield for Josh Allen.
That's mine. Because that's not super far-fetched either, because it was kind of a toss-up between Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield for a little bit, and obviously they settled it on Baker Mayfield. I remember it was a couple days or a week before the draft, but like it was genuinely
You could make
close.
a lot of money betting Mayfield to be the first overall pick up until like the day before the draft.
Right. So like it was almost Josh Allen. I'm not just doing this just because it's like, obviously Josh Allen is better. Like, this actually could have almost happened, as much as it might hurt Cleveland.
Yeah, so there was also a lot of people that thought it was going to be Darnold. So
Darnold was the favorite.
Could have been worse.
Boy, that wouldn't have.
That wouldn't have
worked out either. We would have been exchanging that one as
Josh
well.
Rosen, though. I mean.
Oh, you're really right. Yeah, Josh Rosen.
Mine is a little bit, because I think we galaxy brain this a little bit too much. Because going into the year, there was a question, like, our numbers liked Fields about a little bit higher than Lawrence, actually, but we defaulted to some of the scouts on Lawrence, and then Zach Wilson comes in and has a great year for BYU, and it was against nobody. But then people like me are like, well, you're also throwing to like Mitt Romney's nephew, so like how you're also dealing, like the opponent's strength goes both ways. And so we talked ourselves into Wilson, and Wilson's numbers look wonderful. And we talked ourselves out of sort of like the second year that he was there, or the sort of mechanical issues and I think a lot of people, and I'm still bullish on Wilson, I think, relative to literally anybody else. But I think at pick 2, I would have probably wanted Fields still. Yeah. And I think ultimately that's, then that means everybody from pick 3 to pick 10 also deserves a mulligan for their picks.
Right.
But I would have taken Fields in hindsight over Wilson. I liked Wilson at the time. I also bet a lot of money he'd go at 2, so I was kind of like...
So you were happy. You were financially invested. Yeah. So that part you still get to cash. Ian, what about you?
I think a lot of these, I would be shocked if Baker ever has a better career than Josh Allen, but it's still potentially on the table. But to take Jalen Reagor over Justin freaking Jefferson.
Oh, Lord, this is a good one.
Like, we're talking about the number one player in receiving yards over the past 2 years. Like, okay, I still think Devontae Adams, king wide receiver 1 of the world. But if we want to have a top 5, hell, even a top 3 conversation, Justin Jefferson needs to already be involved in that. And we talked about Jamar Chase and him. Like, the fact Chase is doing as well as he is too. Both these guys, what they have done this early in the league, absolutely wild. And seeing Philly, and they've gotten it done. Most run-heavy offense, it's been fun to see. But just in terms of a non-quarterback, 1-for-1 pick, I don't know how it could be.
I don't know if they still would have picked Devontae Smith, but thinking about Justin Jefferson and Devontae Smith in the same offense is pretty sick.
I even think they go back to wide receiver next draft. I'm doing like a mock draft this week, PFF.com.
Oh, a little teaser.
For Monday.
I love it.
Like they have 3 draft picks.
Gary Wilson.
They have 3 draft picks in the first round this year, and
Right.
Jalen Hurts has played well enough where you're probably not using a quarterback pick.
Right,
So
right.
either you're trading back or using all 3, and you look at Philly's roster. Like, where are their needs? Maybe a player in the secondary, maybe a player on one of the offensive defensive lines. But like, they probably need just a big physical wide receiver, like a Treylon Burks or something like that, to go in and like.
J.J. Arcega-Whiteside type.
Can you not? Can you not? I was J.J. Arcega-Whiteside truther.
I was J.J. Arcega-Whiteside in both pronunciations of his name. I was in both times.
I thought he was going to be so good.
I saw ice in those eyes when you looked at me there.
That is a trigger
See,
right there.
it's funny because I was at the second you had to pronounce it the proper way. I'm not doing that ever.
Red flag.
Can't do it.
Red flag.
Yeah.
Come on.
Can't do it.
It's fancy. It gets fancy. Arcega-Whiteside.
I don't want my wide receiver to be fancy. I want him to catch the ball and get open.
I'd like him to do anything at this point to maybe get the draft value back. Okay, we're going to dive into all of these games. We're previewing a big AFC North divisional matchup to start. But before we get there, I got to talk to you guys about Western and Southern. Western and Southern is teaming up with PFF's very own Chris Collinsworth to get you ahead on both your financial and fantasy scoreboards. You can ask all kinds of questions to Chris, whether it's his old playing days, some behind-the-scenes story with Al on Sunday nights, or it could even be just some financial questions to Western and Southern, no matter what your financial goals are. You can ask the questions by going to westernsouthern.com/ask Chris. That is westernsouthern.com/ask Chris. All of the questions are answered on Chris Collinsworth's podcast, as well as Western and Southern's Instagram. Didn't take a breath for like 60 seconds. With Western and Southern, you guys can rest assured on game day, guaranteed.
I think we found Baker's issue. Like, was Baker just not breathing, and then he would just yeet an interception, or like?
Well, let me tell you, I was about to black out right there, so I can understand when the ball leaves his hands. If he hasn't breathed, if he hasn't taken a breath in a while, then it's probably not going to go well for him.
See, look, we're just understanding the game better and better and better every week.
Right. Every ad read.
Over under 12 hours when the Browns are eliminated from playoff contention that we start getting reports on all the injuries Baker's been playing.
Oh, no, it's going to be like a hockey playoff where it's like, oh, this team's out. Yeah, that guy had a completely shattered
It's going to be
leg.
like LeBron showing up at the press conference with a cast. Like Baker's going to go
something
in with
like
a full
that.
body suit.
Yes. That's what it's
Full naked gun thing. They're just going to wheel him in.
Yeah.
Does he have to be in a full body cast for us to like mulligan the season? Like what?
I think
He's
so.
gonna have like a neck brace and like 2 shoulder sleeves, and so it's just gonna be like he's not gonna be able to.
But this is the thing. Like he is legitimately.
That doesn't
been
change
dealing,
the way he walks, by the way. Same walk.
He's legitimately been dealing with a fully torn, wrecked shoulder.
No,
for the
in all
entire
seriousness,
year.
yeah.
And it's being swept under the carpet because it's been so long since it first happened that we just don't care anymore. And it's like he's going to throw a couple of interceptions. That's just Baker.
Baker Mayfield, talking about him gets the clicks. It gets people want to hear about it. But truly, the guy is playing absolutely hurt. So, okay, we're not talking about Baker Mayfield in this game preview. We're talking about the Baltimore Ravens traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. This is a team that Eric said they just could have got out of their own way. This division might be already theirs, but as it stands today, they still need a W. They still need to win. They still need to make it happen. Sam, what do you think about this game with where the Ravens are, starting Josh Johnson, and going up against the Bengals as the road team here?
I'm kind of with Eric in that I think the Josh Johnson thing could work fine. Like, as much as there's a huge step down each time they change quarterbacks in the betting market, like Lamar's been playing terribly for a while. There wasn't a big difference between Lamar and Huntley as the starter. I'm not sure there's a massive difference between Huntley and Josh Johnson as the starter. But so I think the Ravens could easily keep it close. What's fascinating, though, is that this was the game last time where Burrow to Jamar Chase, the Midas touch was in full evidence. Every time the ball went in his direction, something good happened. Ravens defenders fell over. They took each other out. Jamar Chase made big plays, had 200 yards, 114 yards after the catch, 5.3 yards per route run, which is just a monster number. And that was with Marlon Humphrey covering him for most of the game. All of a sudden, the Ravens don't have any defensive backs left anymore, but the Jamar Chase Midas touch thing has cooled down. Which way does that go? Does that help Baltimore somehow manage to cover him? Wink Martindale has said they're not going to give him the Devontae Adams treatment where there's 2-3 guys on him every single play. They're going to play him as a normal quote-unquote receiver, and we've already seen that has the potential to go badly.
Cool down. I mean, it's Minnesota, like weather, Alaska weather for Chase. Chase went over 200 yards in the Ravens game. His prop as of Friday, when I looked it up, 63.5 receiving yards in this game. Chase has not had a 100-yard game since the Baltimore game the first time. He hasn't gone over that prop number in all but one game since that game.
Wow.
Like, he's cooled down, and the question is what is it? And it's partially drops, it's partially other guys stepping up, and it's partially Zach Taylor. Just like I think Mike Renner said this on the podcast with Austin Gale this week, the tailgate pod. But like, they had 11 first down plays in the second half of that Denver game, and they ran the football on 10 of them, and the one that they threw was a deep touchdown to Tyler Boyd. Like, I say this all the time, nothing takes the air out of that stadium like a Joe Mixon run, and they do it to their detriment. I know Mixon's a good back, but you have to have balance in a way that's going to like lean on your quarterback. And I just don't see them getting out of their own way, Sam, to actually cover the spread against a team like the Ravens +7.
This was the one matchup this year where we saw them throw the ball a lot, because Burrow's only eclipsed 35 pass attempts in 4 games. Yeah. 3 of them were losses where you just get down the scoreboard and you got to come back. But this Ravens game, a blowout win, we actually did see Burrow cooking early and often. And I wonder if it's because of how good he's been against the blitz, against one of the most blitz-happy defenses in the league. Our second highest graded quarterback on the season, 91.6 PFF passing grade against the blitz. Just against the Ravens alone in that matchup, 10 for 15, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. So, we want the Bengals to maybe change what they're doing. But at the same time, Baltimore, look at your cornerbacks out there right now. Like, Mitt Romney's son is getting serious snaps out there. Maybe they need to change what they're doing.
Mitt Romney's son is putting those guys in a blender, I feel like, at that point. But yeah, so in this game, this is obviously we're going to talk about, New England versus Buffalo later, which has the most leverage. But this one is a pretty high leverage game here. Current playoff odds, given Cleveland's loss yesterday, basically both teams are a coin flip, to make the playoffs in the AFC, which is kind of weird to think about because it's either one or the other in many cases. But there are paths where they can both make it. Current division odds, the Bengals are favored here because they're favored in the game today, and that's a big one. But basically, if the Ravens win, they're a humongous favorite to win the division and make the playoffs, and the Bengals are a huge underdog too. If the Ravens lose the game, the Bengals are a huge favorite to make the playoffs or to win the division. So again, this is a playoff level game in this division and in the AFC playoffs. And the interesting question that I have for people is, if you're one of the elite AFC teams, who are you rooting for in this game?
Probably the Bengals.
Probably the Bengals?
Are there elite AFC playoff teams?
Okay, so let's assume New England.
I'll answer your question with another question.
New England, Kansas City, possibly Tennessee. Assume everything goes right for Tennessee and they're in the playoffs with Derrick Henry and the 2 wide receivers and their offensive line and stuff, and maybe they get the 1 seed. Who are you afraid of? It's a great question, right? Because I think the Bengals have a lot of things that can hurt you, and the Ravens don't. But then the Ravens get Lamar back, and he's like the quintessential player that can kill you.
And to that point, both of these teams so far this season are 7-7 against the spread. Now, the Ravens have lost 80 starters at one point cumulatively throughout the season, which is crazy. So for them to be 500 against the spread with that kind of damage, including what's happened to Lamar, starting Tyler Huntley, now starting Josh Johnson, that is what Eric talked about. The coach of the division is still John Harbaugh. Bengals are also 7-7 against the spread, and that just shouldn't be. They should be a lot better against the spread. They should have more of a dominant hold on a lot of these teams, especially with their passing attack, but they just don't. This line in this game, Bengals are favored by 2.5. I believe it's still 2.5.
It's gone all the way out to 7.
Because of the quarterback.
So it was 2.5 when it was unclear if Lamar would play. Then once it was clear that Lamar wasn't playing, it was 4.5. Yeah. And then now that Josh Johnson's the player, it's 7, which I think all of us look at this and say, okay, is Huntley 2.5 points better than Josh Johnson?
I would take the Ravens in this game, even Not just because of what the Ravens don't have, but because I just don't believe in the Bengals to blow anybody out at this point, especially a well-coached, good division team. So I'd be taking the Ravens and the 7 points. What are you guys taking in the spread?
Yeah, look, they are inclined to run the ball and be conservative even regardless of the situation, right? In a game like this now where you have the dramatically better quarterback, where all of a sudden you're a 7-point favorite, like the temptation this team is going to have to just run the ball every single time. Look, this is how this is how you beat opponents. You establish the run, you low risk kind of offense. It is set up for Baltimore to cover that number.
The last 2 weeks, so you said Ravens are 7-7 against the number. They have covered the last 2 weeks. In both cases, it was they got out to being, so they were a 2.5-win dog to Cleveland. They got a huge deficit, came back, covered the number, almost won the game. Against the Packers, it got out to 9. They got a 2-touchdown deficit, came back, covered the number, almost won. So this is a team that not only, I think, if you bet them, if you want to bet them pregame, great. You also want to bet them live. That's also a good one. If they get behind by a touchdown or two, this team's not going to quit. They're going to come back and go through the back door. The player that has impressed me the most in the league in some cases is Mark Andrews. How good of a tight end he's been this year. I always thought he was somebody who just got schemed layups in that offense, but he's somebody who's actually, in my opinion, a humongous playmaker. And Hollywood Brown has done a great job with these backup quarterbacks of just making I would say just catches underneath, possession receiver type player, and that has kind of moved the chains for an offense that really doesn't have a playmaker in the backfield or anything like that now.
Broncos Raiders is the next game that I want to touch on, but before we get to that, I have a YouTube comment that I was told in my ear that said that Eric looks like someone who opens ketchup packets with his mouth instead of his hands. I don't even know.
What does that even mean?
I know what it means. I know what they're saying, but I don't know what constitutes somebody being that. How do you look at somebody and be like, that guy opens ketchup packets?
If you can't get it open, what else are you going to do? Not that I'm that guy, but...
So a couple assumptions that go in here. A, I eat ketchup. Out of packets.
It's the best call out of packets.
Do you?
No, not out of packets.
No, I'm not saying
I'm 35 years old.
And they're not ones that you paid for. They're ones that came with the Bob Evans delivery that you've had.
Bob Evans is another assumption. Do I look like a Bob Evans eater?
Let's not slander Bob Evans.
Right.
It's a quality breakfast establishment.
I mean, below Waffle House and IHOP and all that, but it's.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't name 80 other places, Bob Evans is fine. Okay.
Do you eat ketchup at all?
I do, yeah, but out of a civilized person, out of a ketchup bottle.
Right, but what if you're at a fair or something, and the only way you can get ketchup is through a packet? Are you opening it with your hands or your mouth? People want to know. Be honest.
No,
never. Not once.
Never.
No, not once.
We gotta start leaving some ketchup packets around the office.
I don't know.
Trying to bait Eric.
I don't know. Might be with the YouTube comment person. Might be with that. Broncos Raiders. Speaking of people who order ketchup packets, I actually don't know where I'm going with that.
No.
Teddy Bridgewater's out. Fun bad Drew Lock is in.
Let's go.
Bad.
We've got the Broncos as the road team, I think, favored by 1 still in this game. I don't know if the line moved heavily.
When you hear Drew Lock on Red Zone, you look up. You're not ignoring that. That's my point.
You are right. I'm not against you here. Okay. We are on the same side. If we're watching Red Zone and you're down eating your food, if you're trying to open your ketchup packet and you hear Drew Lock, you're looking up and that ketchup packet's hanging from your mouth because you got to see what's going on.
Eric's getting a new shirt. It's a lot of problems.
Sam, this game, what do we think about the line, the quarterback matchup? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean the Drew Lock thing. It's true. It is a roller coaster ride. Buckle up. The man has a career big-time throw rate of 5.3%, which is pretty high. That's a good, respectable number. The problem is he has a career turnover-worthy play rate of 4.6%, which is very high.
I love it.
So every time that man drops back to pass, it's like a wheel of fortune, just spins. Are we going for a touchdown? Are we going for crazy interception? Are we going for door number 3 where we miss the field entirely on a key 4th down? It's going to be wild. I'm just not that convinced that the probability of good wild is there anymore.
I'm sad that the Saints didn't trade for Drew Lock at the deadline. Just hearing him basically describe Jameis Now that's what I want.
He's a lower middle class man's Jameis. That's another way to put it.
Yeah. Eric, what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. The Oakland Raiders. I'm gonna call them Oakland until they get to 8 wins. Okay,
so they got to earn the Vegas.
They have gone over the 6.5 win total that a lot of people put them at. A lot of sportsbooks put them at. They, with a kind of like, I don't know, what do we call that win on Monday? Gritty, gutty, awful. I don't know. But yeah, they're
awful.
But they still have an inside.
No awful wins in the NFL, baby.
They still have a relatively inside shot at the playoffs if they win out. The problem is like so far they have just not been able to string a bunch of games together. The total on this game being 41.5 is really where I want to look at, because we've been burned at times betting overs in Denver games, but that's because of Teddy Bridgewater not necessarily being like a player who's going to go downfield or make plays. Locke here, I think he's going to throw touchdowns to both teams today, right? And you add that into.
Is there a prop for that? Like Locke putting up point for both sides?
Derek Carr is one of the leaders in the NFL in terms of big time throw rate and total big time throws. So I think indoors, this opens up a little bit. I think the total of 41.5 is probably the lowest good total that you're going to get for an over this week.
The chat is saying that Drew Lock is a Walmart brand Jameis. Does anybody take offense to that?
I'll allow that.
Like a great value Jameis?
Well, I don't know if they mean great value.
No, great value is like the Walmart brand, right?
Is that the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of Walmart?
I mean, no, but that's what it's called.
I feel like I actually think it's spot on, because the Walmart tells you it's a great value as a marketing ploy, and we've been told like, think about how many quarterbacks we've been told are a great value. Sam Darnold, Josh McCown.
Yeah,
we said, this is a great value quarterback.
It's like value toilet paper, right?
Yeah.
There are some things that are worth spending the money on, and the quarterback position and toilet paper are those
Sam's pillars of value in life.
Those are the two things in life.
Toilet paper.
The only two things in life.
Protect your ass.
And not to get George in trouble, but like Derek Carr is more like the target quarterback.
It's like, why am I not just at Whole Foods?
Thank you. Like, why am I going to Target and paying a ton of money for something that's not that good? Like, I feel like that's what Carr is, where like Drew Lock, you can get him at Walmart.
I really hope somebody tuned into the show like 60 seconds ago. They're like, PFF's doing a live show. Okay, click. We're just Walmart,
Target. Some analytics that we can't get elsewhere,
Did I get game picks for everybody before I move on? Don't want to leave anybody out.
I'm not betting on Drew Lock.
I'm not either. Drew Lock has I believe it is a 35.9 passer rating in limited action this season. He's never had a passing grade above 64 for any season, no matter how much action he's gotten.
I was told when he finished the season 4-1 in 2019 that he was the next Elway. Just goes to show. Do not.
To be fair, Elway had like a career 55 completion rate. Maybe it's
great value.
Maybe there were some stretches where Elway looked like this.
I'm going to bet on Drew Lock after I get the pregame video of him just like bumping Jeezy on the sideline.
Oh,
But before then, no, I'm picking the Raiders.
Right. PFF social team's got to get on this one. Steelers at Chiefs. Next game that I want to preview, Chiefs, 1 seed. Steelers still hanging around because that's just what the Pittsburgh Steelers do. Sam, what do you think about this matchup here?
Well, we were talking before we went live about how this run where Kansas City has put themselves back in control, back in line for the first seed, it's come against a bunch of teams that haven't shown them the things that were giving them problems on offense earlier in the year. Those 2 high looks that everybody talks about, like the games where they were fixed. It was 2 games against the Raiders that looked at that game plan and went, not really.
Right.
45 points on average each game. And then it was the Chargers who, again, they made a better fist of it than the Raiders did, but they played single high basically that entire game. Now, the Steelers don't run a ton of split safety looks either, about 25% of their snaps this season, but they have shown to be more malleable on defense, more willing to adapt, and more willing to say, this is a game plan that works against this team, let's run some more of this week. So with the Chiefs already down some important playmakers on offense, you have to imagine this is going to be a game where they might actually see that game plan again, and we'll get to see if they've been fixed or if they've just played teams that didn't show them that.
They're getting Tyreek Hill back, but Travis Kelce is out. So obviously those are big time players to the Kansas City Chiefs. 7.5 still the line. Chiefs still favored by more than a touchdown here.
It's actually moved all the way out to 10 with that news.
Oh wow!
So that's what the betting markets think of the cumulative effect of guys like Tyreek Hill, I believe it's also Chris Jones, right? Chris Jones is one of the best defensive linemen in the game. Charvarius Ward's back. So they've gotten a few of the pieces back, and that's like sort of where, like my pick is, which is to go under 45. With the Chiefs, basically have gone under in like sort of every game other than the Raiders games and then the game where they were depleted defensively on Thursday night against the Chargers. The Steelers are like the quintessential bad offense. Big Ben Roethlisberger this year has been worth a quarter of a win above replacement, meaning you put Josh Johnson on Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh's record's the same, right? And so Maybe better, yeah. I mean, who knows? Josh Johnson's actually good. But,
wow.
I think, to me, this is a game where the Chiefs try to get out of this game winning, really quickly. Think of the Denver game on Sunday Night Football, where they get up 10, and they'll let Najee Harris run for 4 or 5 yards a carry. They'll dare Big Ben to make plays in the red zone. They'll make the Pittsburgh Steelers settle for field goals, and they'll win the game 23-10 or something like that. That's how I see it.
Well, it's going to be a limited Steelers offense, apparently, that is going to be trying to make plays. Because Chase Claypool has to play behind Ray McCloud because he did a first down signal. Let's take away a weapon from a quarterback that, he's dead last in the league in a percentage of throws thrown short of the stick. And you might say, hey, Ian, what about in obvious pass situations? 3rd and 4th down, 5 yards or longer. Okay, he's 3rd worst behind Teddy and Jared Goff. That's what Big Ben has done this offense all year. They never even have a chance. I'm old enough to remember week 2 and week 3, 4th and 10, and Ben just dumps it down to Najee without even a second's glance.
So many of those plays.
Should Claypool have done that? No. But to actually see them embrace the Big Ben experience this year without a second, we're getting the leaked reports, maybe this isn't the right year. Really? Now you're taking a stand on your pretty much, other than Deontay Johnson, only viable playmaker in the offense? Come on.
I'm pretty confident in this one because when you look at the Steelers, they've been pretty good as an underdog this season when it comes to covering against the spread and what they've done as an underdog team. And then on the flip side, Chiefs have won 7 games in a row, but 3 of those have been one possession games, and really they have not covered a lot, less than I think 40% or less than 50% when they've been at home. So obviously this game's at home, they're getting Tyreek Hill back, they're getting a lot of weapons back. It's a lot of momentum for the Chiefs, but to me, 10.5 points, way too many points. I would have been taking the Steelers at 7.5. I thought the Steelers a little bit more than a touchdown. I was confident with them getting that. I think the Chiefs win the game. But this is a lot of points given how scrappy I feel like Pittsburgh plays as an underdog, and then how not as imposing as the Chiefs have been all season.
Chiefs are at 70% to have the 1 seed with a win today. That's a big, what happens if. I know Tennessee winning out of the blue on Thursday reduced the odds a little bit. With a loss, the Chiefs are in a tough spot. They basically need to win out and hope that Tennessee were to lose a game moving forward here. So the Kansas City Chiefs are look, Patrick Mahomes has been the starter for the Chiefs for 4 years. This will be their 4th consecutive bye in the AFC playoffs. That's a very interesting legacy so far. I do agree with you, Trev. I think, look, if we want to predict storylines, the Pittsburgh Steelers win this game. Mike Tomlin's the favorite for Coach of the Year. Right, to have that ratty ass bunch at 8-6-1, go into Arrowhead and win.
Holding Chase Claypool behind his back.
Yeah, we talk about Harbaugh, and I think understandably so, because I think it's right that Harbaugh and Tomlin are sort of in that cluster of coaches who get way more out of the talent. But again, if Pittsburgh were going to do that in a year where their win total was 8.5 and they were huge underdogs to even make the playoffs, I think Tomlin deserves some consideration. I don't think they win today, but if they do, that's going to be the narrative.
Yeah, that is
Ben in January. My eyes are already bleeding.
Ben in January?
Yeah, come on.
Listen.
It's like an ice cream.
I need that to be the Nickelodeon game.
That
needs to be the Nickelodeon game, so we can ironically vote Big Ben for MVP.
My favorite part about this show
just stuff the ballots. Just hammer.
Mitch Trubisky
First quarter, it's 98% Big Ben.
My favorite part of the show is the one time a week where Trevor has to give it to me on a joke.
Ben in January as an ice cream company that was your one. That was your one.
I'm a volume shooter. But
this is the last show that we're doing before the new year. So I figured we do a little bit of New Year's resolutions for some of these teams. It could be anybody for a variety of different reasons. Could be draft related, free agency related, could be about their current roster, current coaching staff. What is a New Year's resolution that you guys want to have for a team around the NFL? Sam, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm going to keep it local. The Cincinnati Bengals, they need to stop self-sabotaging. There is
that's a great New Year's resolution.
Zero excuse to have a 55% run ratio on first down when you have Joe Burrow as your quarterback. Joe Burrow right now is arguably playing as well as any quarterback in the NFL, but is being consistently undermined by his own play caller, who's not giving him the ball on first down to make his life easier on third down. Like, that is completely inexcusable. Zach Taylor, there are people that don't think he's a good coach generally, but the head coach gig is such a sort of overall CEO type of position that he needs to hire somebody, give him the offense, step back, take the bird's eye view, and just keep this thing moving in the right direction. Stop running the ball on first down.
Well, I think the worst type of hire you can have is hiring a offensive coordinator who doesn't call plays, and then have that guy, once he's installed as head coach, call plays too. Like, that's like learning two jobs. We've almost never seen that have success. Nick Sirianni, honestly, is like one of the more successful ones, and like they had an adjustment period. So I agree with you there. My New Year's resolution is to, Sam, your Minnesota Vikings, my hometown Minnesota Vikings, let it go. Just let it go. Let it go. Don't let it hold you back anymore. Honestly, let it go. Okay? Like, I know Zimmer's had his moments.
That's it. Let it go.
Zimmer's had his moments.
Who are we letting go?
Everything.
The GM, the head coach, the quarterback, the team.
Literally, Justin Jefferson is the only thing that stays. Honestly,
Wow.
This is a therapy
Chris
session.
Herndon.
He's
because like
pleading into the camera.
Spielman, like, and this is not one of these things where like everything's bad. Like, we talk about the Giants, we talk about these teams where, like, yes, it's a brush fire, but like the Vikings, it's not bad. Like, you had NFC title games, you had great drafts, you had a good head coach who turned the defense around, and you have a quarterback who's playing fantastic football. It just doesn't work together, right? And it's never going to work together. And if they continue to do this, it's going to be another year where Sam and I are looking at the NFC standings, and the Vikings are 7-8-1, and we're wondering, can they win this week 18 game and make the 7th seed in the NFC? And it's just like, let it go. Let it go.
all right. Let it go. Ian, do you have one? You got a New Year's resolution?
Washington, please get Terry McLaurin a QB. I can't do this for another year. Alex Smith, Dwayne Haskins, Colt McCoy, Case Keenum, Kyle Allen, Taylor Heineke, and we got Garrett Gilbert on the list now.
Gilbs.
Did not catch a pass from Ryan Fitzpatrick. I checked. That would have been the best QB, I think, of his career. At this point, we had, if you look at just the great wide receivers that have had dog shit QBs their entire career, Andre Johnson, Allen Robinson. Right now, Terry McLaurin and DJ Moore are battling for that next role. Let's, Washington, for the sake of your freaking number one wide receiver, let it be DJ Moore.
I'm going to stick with the quarterback train. And for my New Year's resolution, I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts. And I'm going to say, don't be fooled by Carson Wentz. Or at least just don't get suckered into it,
It's hard to do with that camouflage sleeve.
I know. It's right. It's his style. And I get it. They won last night.
The sleeve looks
riding
terrible,
high.
It's terrible.
Look, you don't have to tell me. I'm telling them to move
Somebody
on.
needs to tell him, though.
Look, I'm not saying you get rid of Carson Wentz. He's a bum. Because I don't think he's a bum. But he's got an out in his contract after next season. And all I'm saying is my New Year's resolution is be open-minded at quarterback. If you have an opportunity where you see either a major upgrade right now this offseason or your chance to get your hands on a young one that you kind of like in the draft, if you like one of those guys, don't be afraid to do it. Okay? Don't be fooled. That's my New Year's resolution. Just don't be fooled. It's like the line from Wonder Woman 1984, which was an objectively bad movie, but I love the line where they say, life is good, but it could be better. That's what I think with the Indianapolis Colts and with Carson Wentz. It could be better. Don't be totally fooled. Life could also be better for you guys if you use Pristine Auction when going after your signed sports memorabilia. This is your go-to place for it. No matter what team, what player you're looking for, if you're looking for some good signed autographed stuff, check out Pristine Auction. This is your go-to place. Use the promo code PFF when you sign up, and if you do, you're going to get $10 off whatever the first auction is that you win, because it's all auction style. That's what's so great about Pristine Auction. Here it is in the word. It's all auction style. These bids start at $1, so you can get a serious steal for some great merchandise. Over at pristineauction.com, go use the promo code PFF. Get $10 off whatever the first auction is that you win. Rams and Vikings. Forgot where we were going there for a second. Big playoff matchup. Huge.
Forgot the way the show works, but you can quote Wonder Woman 1984. the brain is
the priorities
resources,
the priorities
they're in
are
the right
tough
place.
this morning. But you know what? We're chugging on. We got the Rams trending in one direction. We've got the Vikings apparently trending in absolutely nuclear blowing up and changing the team.
They're on a 2-game winning streak. I'm just saying, like you said, don't be seduced by the opiates of a win.
Yeah, but yours is a little harsher than mine.
I mean, no.
You want people unemployed. You want them out of the state.
I mean, look, Carson Wentz, the last time a team explored a younger option at the position, Carson Wentz self-destructed last year. So, like you might as well be asking for Wentz's job if you're going to say, like, draft a young guy, because Wentz is going to dither if that is the case. So, I'm saying the same thing. Don't be seduced by winning a couple games here and there.
The Vikings' record this year is amazing. They have almost perfected a 2-win, 2-loss, 2-win, 2-loss pattern for the entire year.
But that's Vikings.
Right.
You know?
They screwed it up right at the start by going win-loss before they did the whole pattern. And if you look at their final 3 games, I would say the most likely outcome is 2 more losses and then a win to finish it.
Good.
With the most perfect Minnesota record
They kind of screwed themselves
ever.
with winning against the Packers like a couple weeks ago, because the Packers have the 1 seed sewn up right now. They lay down for Minnesota next week. Now they're basically, they have to play hard, and is Kirk a win in Lambeau guy?
All right. Yeah. So
could be. Well, I was just going to say, good chance Vikings aren't going to win this one because the Rams are on an absolute roll, and they have an offensive weapon that has been in the conversation for Offensive Player of the Year, and that's their wide receiver, Cooper Kupp. If you look at receptions, if you look at receiving yards, if you look at receiving touchdowns, number 1 in the NFL in all of these categories. The man cannot be stopped. We talked about him early on as the favorite for Offensive Player of the Year. Then we've talked about Jonathan Taylor. There have been some other guys that we have put in that conversation, but it's just this dude has been so steady, and here we are a couple weeks left in the season. He's number 1 in every category. So if you thought he was Offensive Player at the beginning of the year, you got to still have confidence there. Sam, when you look at Cooper Kupp, how the Rams are playing, again, obviously we've talked about the Vikings a little bit here. Is this an easy dub for the Rams, or is there anything holding them back here?
There's not an awful lot where you can look at this and say, yeah, Minnesota has some serious advantages here. But I do think it's a fantastic matchup of elite receivers. You've got Cooper Kupp, obviously absolutely on a tear, putting up one of the greatest seasons we've seen. And then the other side, the only guy that Eric doesn't want drop kicked out of the building is Justin Jefferson. Jefferson has been absolutely on fire.
Yep.
But now you look at the Rams and you say, well, do they try and take him away with Jalen Ramsey? Arguably the best cornerback in the NFL. They've deployed him in a different way this season to try and kind of minimize the ease with which you can just avoid Jalen Ramsey in the offense. So Justin Jefferson plays in the slot about 32% of the time, a third of his snaps essentially. Jalen Ramsey only plays outside 47% of the time, less than half the time. So it would take an adjustment with how they deploy him this season if they were to say, you go cover Justin Jefferson one-on-one all game long. But if they don't do that, it's tough to see, how, if they do that, rather, it's tough to see how the Minnesota Vikings win this game.
Well, with Adam Thielen playing, I think it does help, right?
Sure.
Like he's certainly been a guy who's been able to pick up the slack, and that's really where Minnesota's weaknesses have been, which is they only have 2 NFL, decent NFL wide receivers, and then when one's hurt, like last week, like you see the limitations. The interesting thing with Ramsey versus Jefferson is that hasn't been the kind of receiver that Ramsey is. Like Jefferson's so unique, it's sort of hard to sort of see Ramsey be that one-on-one guy. He was the one-on-one guy with Metcalf, who's sort of more of a big physical, like TO type player, and then he's one-on-one with Adams, who's sort of again a more all-around player. That's kind of,
Mike Evans. That's the only other guy they shot at last 2 years.
Whereas Jefferson's like a very Gumby like wide receiver that's kind of open all the time. And I don't know.
It is crazy.
I don't know if Ramsey's good enough to match up with him one-on-one. It's sort of weird to say. And so do they do a thing where Ramsey matches up against Thielen and they just bracket the hell out of Jefferson? To me, that's the better approach because the Vikings don't have sort of a third wheel on the offense. Despite all that, I like over 49 in this game.
Okay. Chad was asking if this was the best bet. So you think this is the best bet for this game?
I think over 49 is the best bet in this game. The hard part, no Whitworth. And we did see DJ Wanham last week against Chicago really have a game against a third-string tackle. So there is that leak, and Zimmer's defense can have its games. I just don't see it here. I think both offenses put up good, and I think you're getting a value on the total because both offenses look terrible early this week.
And the Rams offense under McVay has a ridiculously tight correlation to how good was the offensive line, right? When the offensive line's been dominating, the offense has rolled, everything's looked great. When the offensive line has been bad, that offense falls apart quickly.
When we're talking about okay, Ramsey, maybe they won't have the most success slowing down Jefferson. You look at these Vikings cornerbacks, is Stafford going to have 300 yards by the end of the first half? Cameron Dantzler, Patrick Peterson, Mackenzie Alexander, these guys are all 60th or worse in PFF coverage grade among 127 qualified guys. Mackenzie Alexander is 125th. Bashad Breeland, who they cut, was 121st. All year long, it's been a disaster. And we got Cooper Kupp. We saw the big numbers. Cooper Kupp has the most PPR fantasy points per game in the last 50 years of a wide receiver. Truly ridiculous. Go back and look at Browns versus the Vikings earlier this year. This was, I think, kind of the time when we realized we couldn't watch Odell Beckham together anymore. Baker missed him on not one, not two, 3 separate touchdowns. Yeah. So, that's the big question, because if Trevor watches the games with us, Beckham doesn't score.
It's true.
If you take one for the team, then hopefully.
Tyler Higbee coming back from COVID, too.
I haven't decided where I'm going to watch the games yet today. Okay. So I'm just leaving it up.
Tell him before 1, I'll bench OBJ if so.
Okay. Is it Cooper Kupp MVP talk? Anybody believe in that at all whatsoever, or no?
What about Cooper Kupp versus Jonathan Taylor?
Well, so
for offensive player of the year, you're saying?
Our PFF War metric has Cooper Kupp worth about half a win, maybe more like 2/3 of a win this year. Taylor's sort of in that quarter of a win.
Okay.
So the issue is whatever you believe about running back value and stuff, wide receivers that push the boundaries of record breaking are just worth more than running backs that do, because in theory you can imagine they literally did this, but you put Marlon Mack in Jonathan Taylor's shoes, he's not as good, but what's the record for the Colts? It's still probably close to where it is now. If you take Cooper Kupp off that offense for the Rams, the Cardinals still are probably winning the NFC West, and they're terrible right now.
I don't think he's in the conversation over the quarterbacks, right? Over Rodgers, over Brady.
Let's not compare the quarterbacks.
Yes, but next guy there, I could agree that it could probably be.
No, see, that's the thing. That's why the MVP award drives me insane, because if you care about the value part of it at all, it's a quarterback award. Move on, right? There is no discussion for anybody else. Literally none. If you think that, hey, another position can get in, we'll just award the best players, then Trent Williams wins this year and nobody else is in the field. It's not even close to the next guy. So those are your two options. We talk about Trent Williams or we talk about quarterbacks. There is no middle ground.
Pandering to O-line Twitter right now is my heroine.
It's not pandering. The dude is a monster.
He's great. Don't get me wrong. And I think he does have the highest WAR a week ago.
He does. I looked this up a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. So he's
which for an offensive lineman is ridiculous.
Really hard to do. Yeah, it's really hard to do.
What about the kind of what happens if simulations in this game?
Yeah. So we had to run these numbers in a bunch of different scenarios, but Indianapolis does win, right? So the LA Rams are the favorite to win the NFC West right now at 55%. If they were to win this game, which they are favored to do, they're at 71%. If they lose, they're back to a backseat to Arizona, right? Because there's a Arizona beat Minnesota, right? So there's a common loss there that Arizona, sort of has that or doesn't have that LA would have. So it is a humongous game for the Rams. If they win, they're in the driver's seat for an NFC West title. If they lose, they're back to needing help. Minnesota is basically a 1 in 8 chance to make the playoffs if they lose this game. They're basically a 50-50 chance if they were to win this game. And again, sort of with these simulations, you have to be sort of careful, because if the Vikings were to beat the Rams, then it would suggest that they're actually better than their current record, right? And so that their chance of winning out the next 2 games are higher. And so that's why they go from being a team that's sort of a 1 in 3 chance to make the playoffs right now to a 1 in 2 chance with a win.
Washington football team at Dallas Cowboys is another divisional matchup that I want to preview here. Sam, what do you think about Dak Prescott right now? Because it feels like we're talking about a lot of other teams, a lot of other players, whether it's MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, everything, where they're in the seeding. And all of a sudden, it feels like very quietly, Dallas is now sitting at the 2 seed, right? They are still right there. And a lot of talk has been made on their defense. Trayvon Diggs, DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, all of that. But Dak Prescott, what do we think about him? Because it runs through the quarterback. A lot of success in the playoffs. So what do we think about where Dak is right now in this season?
Dak, he's just been off since coming back from that injury. And I know they've been winning games. They've been put in a good situation. And some of his high-end plays still look spectacular. But he's just making so many more mistakes. 8 turnover-worthy plays in his last 3 games after 10 in his first 10 games. So, and look, these two teams played recently. And if you look at just the score, it's like, oh, it was a pretty close game. Dallas annihilated Washington in that game, but Dak kept throwing the ball to Washington. Literally put points on the board for them. Early in the game as well was an interception that's sort of the worst miss I can remember seeing through just inaccuracy, like just being 5 yards off with the ball you're trying to hit. If Prescott doesn't do that in this game, you would imagine Dallas absolutely walks over Washington. But if he does, and he's been doing that the last few games, anything is on the table.
It's tough to say what it is exactly, too. I mean, he did suffer the calf injury that caused him to miss that first game out of the bye. But, pick a stat, any stat. Maybe you're not a big fan of PFF grades. Look at yards per attempt completion rate. Anything you want in the difference between Dak in the first 6 weeks of the year compared to ever since is truly alarming. I mean, 8.4 yards per attempt before versus 6.5 now. 16-4 touchdown to INT ratio, now at 9-6. He's just been riding the struggle bus. I will say, though, I mean, we saw with Tom Brady and company getting goose egg last week.
Right.
Every single offense has had, a drought at some point. We know at their best that this Cowboys offense can be one of the more lethal groups in the league. They're still second in scoring somehow. Like they're second in the NFC. They're second in scoring. Maybe this is, a potential get-right spot. So if they can keep those guys blocked up front, we know nobody can hang with this wide receiver room when they're all right.
I sort of look at Dallas the way I look at Kansas City in the AFC, which is that you have a good quarterback who's not playing up to his potential. You have a good play caller. I don't think like Moore and McCarthy are on the same level as Reed, but you have CeeDee Lamb, who's a top 10 receiver in PFF WAR. You have Cooper, Gallup, you have Schultz. You have a good offensive line when they're all healthy, and then obviously Pollard and Zeke. And then on the defensive side of the ball, like it's just getting healthy, right? Like Micah Parsons is basically a half a win above replacement. He's like more than a tenth of a win above replacement over any other linebacker in the NFL.
Wow.
Top 10 defensive player in football in terms of value, and it's hard to do that as an off-ball guy. And he's just playing extremely well. You get Lawrence, obviously, and possibly Gregory back. I don't know what the status is there. And then they have all the safeties playing well, too. The J-Ron Curses of the world. They're just playing lights-out football. And I think that the interesting thing for them is the difference between them and a Super Bowl is one variable. It's Dak. And if Dak plays well, I think that they can run the table here. And it's the same thing with the Chiefs. Like, once the Chiefs figured out that their defense was good and, they could, the offensive line was fortified, the one variable was Pat, right? And to me, that's a lot easier than looking at some of these other teams like Tampa Bay and you're like, well, the one variable is whether everybody can get healthy. Or, with Green Bay, the one variable is whether or not their secondary receivers can play well against great defenses. And, like, stuff like that where, like, I think that these, like, sort of lurking giants like Dallas, I can see them winning it all, even though right now their form isn't the best.
Yeah, you can always look at those sort of things in two different ways, right? It's like, on the one hand, the most important player on your roster is not playing well and arguably the reason that's holding you back right now. On the other hand, if that guy plays up to the potential we saw in the first 10 games, or we know he has, all of a sudden you get catapulted in like a completely different stratosphere. And as Eric says, it is just one guy that needs to change.
What's the implications for this one with the win and loss for Dallas, and what happens here?
Dallas is basically assured of the division title right now. I mean, they have to basically collapse. They're, because of Green Bay's win, as you said yesterday, they're sort of in that like 10 to 15% range to get a 1 seed. That goes away, not necessarily like completely to zero with a loss, but if they were to lose, it's, they have 5 losses. The worst Green Bay could do is have 5 losses, so they have to sort of like get in with a tiebreaker there. For Washington, though, Washington with a win gets up to 22% to make the playoffs, and with a loss, it's all the way down to 4%. So this is a big game for Washington football team. I don't know, Sam. I think it's over. But
he already sold the boat. It's fine. It's fine. He's not even.
But I do think it's more competitive here. I do think Washington football team getting 10.5 might be a good bet for all the reasons we talked about. That Dallas is kind of not that team right now that can cover a double-digit spread reliably.
We got Darius on the line, Darius Butler. So we're going to get to him in a second. But before we get there, I know the chat's been asking this. Should the NFL change the MVP rule to just most outstanding player, like the CFL does? You think it should just totally be most outstanding player?
Yes. Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
And then
Sam, what do you think about this?
The old MVP award just then goes to whoever was the all-pro quarterback. I mean, basically, that's what you're doing, right? So you still...
I mean, you already have, like, offensive players. Like, we don't need a quarterback, like, award.
Well, then why isn't Offensive Player of the Year just sufficient then for everybody's?
Well,
why
I think that it's perception, right? Because I think that people view it as, okay, what is the MVP talk? Because we have it in every sport, right? When people debate Michael Jordan and LeBron James, they talk about MVPs, right? When people talk in any sport, they want to know MVPs, and I think because of just the sports culture, that MVP is always going to be the number one award, where I don't know if we can reprogram people to think Offensive Player of the Year is more valuable. I think that we just have to eliminate MVP altogether. Right.
That's what we're talking about.
Get down to the bones.
In any other sport, it is just, Player of the Year, or, an international sport, World Player of the Year. It's just the best player, the most outstanding player.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to reward here.
Right.
But because we named it MVP,
because football's a fundamentally different game.
That's the thing.
Right.
In football, it's broken because quarterback is the most valuable thing and will be, until the game pivots to some sort of 1930s single wing style of game.
Which, by the way, I have ideas.
I mean, the Falcons can't score a point without Cordero Patterson, but he's not going to get a vote.
It's true.
It's a great point.
If that doesn't tell you the award's broken, nothing will.
This is what the agented media doesn't want you to hear. Also, we had a chat question, Eric. Do you have any CFL free agency takes at this point?
Oh man, not yet. I'll have my futures bets out by let's say mid-February. Once the NFL season dies down, we're a week more into February than normal. Also, by the way,
is there a newsletter I can subscribe to?
At some point, I'm working on it. But actually, what's next up?
EFL.
By the way, USFL.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Let's go. Me and Ian, I'm impromptu. We're starting a podcast.
We are.
Called the Small Potatoes.
Yes.
Named after the Donald Trump documentary.
Ian didn't know about this until right now.
It's
happening. Guys, whether it is MVP, whether it is most outstanding player, offensive player of the year, whatever, if you want to know the answers to who is the most valuable in football, I guess not most valuable, but best in whatever way, shape, or form, you can do so with a PFF subscription over at PFF.com. We've got two different subscription models that you can see. It's called Edge. You got an Elite. They're different price points. You can see exactly what you get for each of them. You still get to access a lot of good information with that Edge subscription, but man, it's that Elite subscription that really takes you next level. A lot of the premium stats that you hear us reference here on this show, why we're betting the way we are, why we think the opinions that we have when it comes to the awards or whatever it is, a lot of it comes from that premium PFF data, and you can see all that if you get yourself an Elite subscription. We've got some sales going on right now. Check it out. Everything over at PFF.com. All right, it's DB time. It's time to bring in our good friend Darius Butler to the show. Darius, before we get it going, gotta ask, how was your Christmas, man? How was everything spending time with the family? You got to see a Colts win. You got a Colts win on Christmas.
That made my Christmas day, man. Gritty win on the road. Down, the chips were against them. Great job from the top down, from Irsay to Ballard, Frank Wright, all the way down the roster, man. Great win. Definitely made my Christmas. But we're blessed. It's a lot of craziness going on around the world with a bunch of things. So we're definitely blessed and enjoyed my Christmas. I hope you guys did as well.
Yeah, we did. Nothing better than a gritty, vintage Carson Wentz victory on Christmas. I think that's what everybody was looking for. We're going to talk about this Bills-Patriots game. That's the game that I want to preview here with Darius because it's huge. I think this has major implications on playoff spots, who even makes the playoffs, but even more than that, I think this goes beyond just this game, fellas. I think that there's a lot of confidence for both of these teams that's going to be a ripple effect moving on, I think, throughout this Sunday and this week. Darius, what do you think about this one? Obviously, Buffalo struggling against New England the last time that they met a couple of weeks ago. New England comes up with a big win in Buffalo. Now the Bills have the chance to get the revenge. Do you think they will this week?
You know what? I do. I think they will, man. At this point in the season, the Bills are missing. They're missing Cole Beasley, which is going to be obviously a big guy to miss. But I like Josh Allen, man. I still like Josh Allen. I still like this offense go out there, put up points. Obviously, the last time these two teams faced off, the weather was crazy. Patriots lined up in two-back and ran it down their throat 40-plus times. I'm sure the Bills' defense still, their ass is still chapped from that experience. You saw the safeties after that game. They'll come out with some fire under their ass today, man. So I'm excited about this matchup. It will be a good game, but I think Josh Allen and the Bills will pull it out late. So I think they'll get their revenge.
Sam, as it stands right now, we've got the Bills at 8-6. We got the Patriots at 9-5. Patriots currently got the 3 seed. Chiefs took them over, so they got knocked down a couple of spots since the last time we previewed this matchup. Bills sitting right there on the bubble for the playoffs, but coming off a win against Carolina. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, and the loss that New England had in between the two games was huge because they could have kind of taken over the division anyway and been off and away, but Buffalo all of a sudden has everything to play for again. Really, Darius said it. The Bills need to go out there and prove that they are not just going to get run over again, right? They got run over by the Patriots in the weird weather, but the Colts did it to them before. Buffalo's run defense is not bad overall, but against physically dominant teams that can show up with a powerful offensive line and just commit to the run, there have been 2 games now where they have not been able to stop it. And, the game plan has to be force Mac Jones to the air and hope that Mac Jones does what he did against the Colts, which is, throw the ball to defenders a couple of times.
Eric, this game's in New England. We've got the Patriots favored by 2.5 right now. Ramondre Stevenson's not playing for the Patriots. Now Aguilar's not playing. Darius mentioned that Cole Beasley's out for Buffalo. What do you think about this line and then just the matchup overall?
Yeah, Gabriel Davis, too, who's been emerging as one of the more efficient guys on that Buffalo offense, also with COVID-19. The betting markets have started gravitating towards Buffalo here, kind of probably with the teasers up to 8.5, but this number is trending towards a pick'em. You might even see it close that way. And I get it. I think if you look at this game, if Buffalo were to lose, it's like, actually, Buffalo loses this game, the only 2 teams with a chance to win the AFC East are the Dolphins and the New England Patriots, because the Dolphins have a Week 1 win, and if they both finish at 10-7, they would have swept New England, and that's sort of where that ends up going. So Buffalo's eliminated from their second straight division title if they were to lose this one. If they were to win, though, they have an 80% chance to win this division. So again, this is the highest leverage game of the weekend, even more than Cincinnati versus Baltimore. So it's a big game for the Bills, and I think that's kind of where people are sort of like narrative handicapping here, saying, hey, the Bills have to cover here because they have to cover here. And I just don't know if that's sound. That's why our model is like New England here.
Yeah, I feel like, like you mentioned, the swing is huge. Patriots win this one. They basically won the division. Yeah. I know you said that the Dolphins are still alive, but they basically lock it up there. And then if the Bills win it, I mean, they're right back in the driver's seat, it feels like. Ian, what do you think about this matchup?
I just want to see, kind of Sam's point, like how much of that first strategy was them playing in all that wind and snow, and how much was them realizing that maybe this is the way you attack this Bills defense. Mac Jones has our highest PFF passing grade this year when targeting open or wide open receivers. The Bills have allowed the single fewest completions to open receivers. So no Ramondre Stevenson, but that could mean Damian Harris, 20-25 carries, get him into fantasy lineups of all shapes and sizes.
Darius, I feel like both of these teams, no matter how it shakes out, are going to be in the playoffs. So my question to you is, how for real do you think either of these teams are, Bills and the Patriots? It seems like the Patriots are maybe going to get the higher seed. At least they're sitting there right now, so they might have that advantage to them. I think a lot more people believed in Buffalo going into the season. So I'm curious, with a couple of weeks left to go, how for real are either of these teams to make an AFC or Super Bowl run?
I mean, being that they're in the AFC, I think they're both for real right now. The NFL is wide open in general, but especially the AFC conference. So when you look over there, anyone can make a run at this point. The Patriots have kind of steadily been gaining later in the season. Obviously, got that loss against the Colts. Bills, same thing. So I think they're both for real. Josh Allen obviously gives the Bills, in my opinion, a higher ceiling. You are missing Tre'Davious White, an all-pro level corner, which will show up at some point, late in the season in the playoffs. But the Bills have the higher ceiling, in my opinion. But obviously, the Patriots, better coach, more steady, and they've been here before. So we'll see if Mac Jones can kind of get on that train and be, what this team needs to take them over the top. But I think both of these teams are for real. They'll be in the playoffs. But Josh Allen, he has more experience, and he's clearly, after Patrick Mahomes is, and we got Herbert over there. It's third most talented quarterback over there in the AFC. So the Bills are definitely for real.
Yeah, I think Darius is right here. Where you look at, like, if you are a fan of the Kansas City Chiefs or a fan of the Los Angeles Chargers or one of those sort of elite-ish teams in the AFC, you want a New England win, right? That drops Buffalo down to basically 50-50 to make the playoffs.
Right.
We have the graphic up, from earlier here. Like that, if you get a quarterback like Josh Allen eliminated from this entire thing, that's a huge boost.
Yes.
And you want, if you're an elite team in the AFC, more Carson Wentz's, more Mac Jones's, more guys like that in the playoff field than you want Justin Herbert's and Josh Allen. And a New England win here does that favor for the elite teams in the AFC, the few, the proud, Kansas City and but it does help them quite a bit.
I feel like this is.
I thought that was the Marines.
He was about to. He was about to throw it out there. He wanted to. You could tell it was just rolling off the tongue. I feel like this game is almost Buffalo's Super Bowl, if you will, because kind of going back to what I was talking about before, this is more than just one game in the win-loss column for Buffalo. They win this game, this might be the confidence they need. This might be, we asked, hey, where is the Buffalo team that we all kind of believed in at the beginning of the season? They've been up and down, they've been inconsistent. They win this game, they've got a chance to really roll into the playoffs with a ton of momentum. They lose it, I don't know if they recover. I still think they maybe make the playoffs, but this could be a one-and-done team, I think, if they lose this one.
Well, even if, their confidence has to get shattered if they don't win it, particularly if they don't win it in the same way. Like, if they can't stop the run again, they get run over again, the Patriots beat them again, they roll into the playoffs, and they know that sooner along the way they're going to face an Indianapolis or a New England or a Tennessee or a team that is going to go out there and just try and run the ball down their throats. And they're now 0 for 3 in trying to stop those teams. So, whether or not they can win, their confidence in being able to win those games has got to be rock bottom.
Well, it goes on Josh Allen's shoulders, right? We've seen the roller coasters throughout this year, and it has been more bad than good against the Patriots. He had the 320 yards and 4 touchdowns last year in Week 16. 5 of 6 matchups, though, 225 or fewer yards. And, Darius just said, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, that's a legitimate debate. I'm not so sure it would be 6 months ago. Guys, I think I'd rather face Allen than Herbert in the year 2021.
Yeah, it's
or
weird.
2022. For
that offense is so weird, right? Because everybody's talking about how the Bills can't run the football. And they're right. Like, when they hand the ball off, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. But if you add in the RPO stuff, if you say, if you put not even that, just RPOs that are throws. If you take them and say, okay, all plays called runs in the huddle, the Bills are about as efficient as like a team like the Colts. It's just that when they actually hand the ball off, they're just not very good. But the RPO stuff works. Now, today's game, who are the guys catching the RPO balls? It's the Cole Beasleys, it's the Gabriel Davises, it's the Diggs, and they only have 2 of those guys are out. So to me, again, I think that the deck is stacked against the Bills just this season in general, and the rest of the AFC to me is like praying that they just get toppled over here.
This guy doesn't believe in Isaiah McKenzie.
Unbelievable. No, it's make or break. It's make or break for the Buffalo Bills, no doubt about it. Well, okay, we are obviously, if you guys didn't notice, still wearing the Christmas sweaters here on the set. It's still the Christmas season, even though Christmas was yesterday. So what we would like to
talking about this is.
You're right. Sorry, that's your normal sweater. Yeah. You're right. You are in normal attire. The rest of us had to. I
walked into the store and they said the normal.
The huge. The huge. Hey, I'll take the eager. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to give away some really bad white elephant takes. You know how you could show up to a white elephant gift and sometimes you bring a gag gift. Sometimes you'll bring a gift that's like, oh man, I hope that I don't end up with that. I wouldn't want to be the person who ends up with that. That's what we're going to do here with our NFL takes. So we obviously have Darius here with us. He can participate if he wants, or he could just be the person that continues to roast us on our bag takes, as it does happen a lot on this show. So fellas, I'm going to start with Sam actually. What is your white elephant gift of an NFL take that you are giving away, hoping somebody else takes it?
All the way
had
back
this season. It's got to be one that you've had this season.
All the way back at the start of the season. I said that Baker Mayfield was going to have a career year. Everything was stacked up for him to be good, and it really hasn't worked out that way.
I mean, it's been a career year.
Badly.
It's defined his career.
It's defined his career. Darius, what do you think about what Baker's year has been?
I'm with you, Sam. I thought everything was laid out for the Browns to make a run. Obviously, they did well in the playoffs last year, and everything looked like this would be the year for Baker and Stefanski. But it's been absolutely terrible. I don't want any gift that has anything with Baker on it, man. But it is tough. And I think after watching the game yesterday, the Browns, they got to make a decision after this year. Either it's going to be Baker or it's going to be Stefanski, because Baker cannot thrive in this system. They don't have a chance. He doesn't have a chance in this system.
How bad has Mayfield
throw it out,
been?
Change it up.
Like, how bad has Mayfield been where in the Christmas season we want nothing from a Baker?
All right, that was good.
Man. It's not all his fault.
That was good. It isn't. It is not all of his fault, and obviously he's playing hurt, and there's things you could talk about. But we are reaching that all-important crunch time that Eric talks about where it's like, hey, you've got to make a decision. Can this quarterback win you a Super Bowl or not? Because if he can't, move on from him.
No.
So I feel like, right. There. Okay, so there's his
It feels absurd to me that because that's it, right? Like every player except for Blake Bortles, which again, Mayfield is not taking Bortles' contract. Yeah. Every quarterback that was drafted high that was signed back to his original team either like took nothing, right, and liked it, or took like a Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, that type of deal. And I'm sorry, if the Browns pay Baker Mayfield anything close to what the Bills pay Josh Allen, they might as well make the bags again and put them on their head and wear them to that stadium because it's going to be bad.
Browns fans don't deserve that.
The Browns they're in such a tough spot because everybody has seen the Browns jersey with all the quarterbacks' names, and we just talked about it. Like they did go to the playoffs. They are a team, they are winning more than they've ever had in my lifetime, at least. So they're in a tough spot. You draft this guy 1 overall, so it's like, okay, because when you're watching the offense, half the time when he's dropping back to pass, his play action, he has his back to the defense, and then you watch a guy like Aaron Rodgers on the other side of the ball, who's obviously a much better passer, but Aaron Rodgers has so many answers pre-snap. Like he just looks at a formation, he looks at a numbers game, and he makes a decision beforehand.
Yep.
Baker needs an offense where things are spread out, and he can kind of see, okay, I'm either going to this guy or that guy, or I hand the damn ball off to Chubb 30 times a game. So they got to make some decisions there. And honestly, in my opinion, it's not hard decisions. Just get him an offense that he can actually operate, and this one is not it.
Well, here's the thing. They can't give him too good of receivers because the good receivers freelance and they force him to play bad, right?
The good receivers, dads will get involved.
Another bad week for the Odell Beckham off splits.
Yeah.
I do think that was Darius's point about Aaron Rodgers and Baker Mayfield in the game that we watched last night is a great one because it's like that's a close game, right? Yeah. Last drive, they could have won it on a field goal. That was a close game, and yet couldn't have been different. One of the quarterbacks makes it look so easy. One of them, you are just begging to just do what they need to do to get into field goal range, maybe get them a win. Ian, what is your white elephant gift that you are giving away this season?
All right. I knew it would be a little bit of a process, but coming this year, I still believe deep down in my heart that Saquon Barkley is the best running back on the planet. He comes in a little bit banged up. We see the big 2-touchdown game against the Saints. He gets injured against the Cowboys. And Darius, I cannot watch a Cowboys game now and truly tell the difference between Saquon and Devontae Booker until the announcer tells me. And I can't tell you how much that pains me. It's the world we live in now, guys.
It's been a struggle for the announcers too. If you've been watching the game,
it's tough.
To be able to tell the difference. But yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough for Saquon. Obviously, a bunch of injuries. But even since he's been out there this year, he doesn't look like the same guy. And Eric talked about re-signing quarterbacks to the deal. I mean, I obviously wouldn't re-sign a running back to their second deal, but taking a running back that high, taking them 2, and then I heard the news today that Judge and Daniel Jones will get another year next year. I'm sure I know how Giants feel hearing that news. So I said, I don't want that one either. Sorry, Saquon.
There's sort of this rule of thumb that if you're watching 4th downs and you're rooting against the offense and you're relieved that they're punting, they should have gone for it. If you are a fan of the other NFC East teams and you're relieved that the Giants made this news today, probably not the news the Giants want to make.
Right.
My white elephant take. And I said this on the PFF forecast. I said it on here 2 weeks ago, and I actually wrote this in my
fresh.
I wrote this in my notes last night, so this is even before what happened last night. I said that the Arizona Cardinals were not the best team in the NFL, but up until that point, they were the most impressive team in the NFL, having started 7-0, having won 2 games with their backup quarterback and Colt McCoy. They get Kyler back. He wins a game in Chicago, actually kind of ugly in hindsight, and then they lose 3 straight. And unfortunately now, the We Are Ramley Rams are about to win the NFC West.
Wait, is Ramley a thing?
Ramley's a thing.
That's what they do? Yeah. The hashtag? Oh, man.
It's better than so you used to watch their old when they were the LA Rams before, and they used to be the Ram. They would say like be rambunctious was their thing back then. Yeah, I mean this team can't win the NFC West because
puns
of the
hashtag.
Exactly.
Puns alone.
Puns alone. Yeah,
can't have it. Can't have it. All right, so mine. I'm gonna get to mine as well. So Darius, you could probably tag team this one. Mine was not that long ago. It wasn't that long ago, maybe middle of the season. And we did our Contenders Pretenders segment. And we brought up Carolina Panthers. And I was like, you know what? going through a lot right now. They don't have a good quarterback situation. But Matt Rule, I think he's in a good situation. I like his, tie to the owner and the general manager. And when they get that quarterback, they're going to be good. The defense is still good. I'm out. I'm out. It was a bad take. It was a terrible take. They're not contenders at all. You guys tried to talk me out of it, so you were right. I'm giving this one back. Somebody else take this white elephant.
Gilmore wish he was back in New England. Like that has to be the biggest down bad trade that he's like. You go from like being kind of he wasn't even a malcontent. It wasn't fitting there. And then he goes to Carolina. Back then Carolina was good. Remember Carolina was all in.
Yeah.
The Patriots start 2-4. He trades up, and now he's looking at J.C. Jackson's about to get his money, and you're stuck. I mean that. I don't know.
What was the point you reached that though? Was it when they fired Joe Brady on his day off?
It was tough when it was like we fired Joe Brady because we want to run the ball more, and I'm like, what?
Come again?
And Christian McCaffrey, I think, was hurt at that point. I'm like, what do you mean you want to run the ball more? Like, I get the quarterback situation is bad, but I want to hear the name DJ Moore 15 times before I hear the words "run the ball." I really do,
but
and that's
also
just
kills me that like Cam Newton, who's had like an up and down last few years, but like for the most part a very good career, is going to go out like this, and it's just not fair to him either.
It does suck.
Like,
it does suck.
Watching that team play offense last week was like I'd rather plunge my head in a vat of asphalt again, and like
which you've done.
Especially when you picked them to cover 14.
Oh, no, I bet them. Who bet? Oh, you?
I did. Me too.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Well, Sam, you talked about Tua and how the Dolphins' offensive line was historically bad pass blocking. As of last week, Panthers now the league's worst.
And that doesn't give me much.
Cam Irving wasn't the answer left tackle. You don't say.
Wow, you
Promise?
don't. All right, this Darius.
Hey, come on. Trey, relax. We got Sam Darnold coming back. All right, Sam Darnold's coming back into the fold.
There's a plan.
Yeah, of course. No, you know when Carolina really lost me. You know what the answer to that question really is? When he said we're going to rotate Cam Newton and PJ Walker. He's like, doesn't matter how they're playing, doesn't matter what we're doing, we're going to rotate quarterbacks.
But they didn't do that. Like that might have just been a case.
Why did you say that?
Because look, maybe you're like, well, they've got to at least prepare for both of them. Like there's any extra preparation that needs to be done for PJ Walker. But that I can at least understand that. Where they really lost you should have been the off season, where they traded for Sam Darnold and then went and prioritized two terrible offensive linemen.
It doesn't look great. Now, I like the draft. I thought they were aggressive. I liked the Stephon Gilmore trade. I liked all these things, and they all just flopped. They were all things that I was like, okay, this could work. This could be cool, and none of them were cool. None of them. They were lame. They were sitting alone at lunch. They were sitting alone by themselves at lunch. Darius, what do you think about the Cardinals, Eric's take, and then obviously my Carolina take there?
I mean, the Cardinals wasn't a bad take. I was on board with that as well. Thought Cliff a few weeks ago should have been in the coach of the year conversation. And like you said, in hindsight, that Bears win was ugly. It was Kyler's first game back. So I know I made excuses for first game back. He still got an ugly win, ugly weather. But it's been bad. And not only the play, it's definitely the quarterback play with Kyler Murray, but the coaching just all around. You watch their execution late in games. It just looks bad. I know you lost D-Hop, but you still have put together a bunch of weapons on that offensive side of the ball. It's not looking good at all. And I've been educated on Cliff Kingsbury late in the season. Last night on Twitter, a bunch of people sent me, this is what he's always done. So hopefully they get that figured out. But that wasn't a terrible take. And what was the other one? The second one?
Carolina. Carolina.
I tried to erase the Carolina one because, like Eric said, as soon as they went and got Sam Darnold from New York, picked up the fifth-year option. I mean, the defense, I had high hope for that defense. But when you have an offense like this that struggles as bad as they do, like I said, I bet on them to cover the 14 points last game. And once they went down more than 14, I knew it was no chance that they would. So if you're in a situation like that, it's bad all around. And they're going to win too many games to pick high enough to get a difference maker anytime soon. So we'll see if Tepper and that organization makes a play for, that guy to Houston, if he can, figure some things out. But it'll be interesting going forward. But that Panthers one. Whew,
I went against my golden rule. Do not bargain shop at quarterback. Just don't do it. And Carolina did, and I was like, maybe.
Unless it's Jameis, then maybe.
Unless it's Jameis? Oh, I guess. Well, if Jameis signs for the league minimum, then sure, I guess maybe that's the case. If Tom Brady signs for $20 million a year, I guess maybe that's the case. But
I think people had a lot of faith in Joe Brady. And
Right.
I have no idea why. You know, he was a college coordinator who did amazing things, obviously with amazing talent. But as you guys know, once you come up into the big boys league, it's a completely different ball game. And then especially when you're handed Sam Darnold to implement your offense. So
Right.
I think Brady got shafted. But, you know, somebody's got to take the hit.
That was another, obviously you brought it up, but like him getting fired the way he did as early as he did with the quarterback situation the way that it is, makes me think like,
and C-Mac been out too.
Right. Things are bad in Carolina. Like you're firing the scapegoat on the bye week, given the whole context of the situation. That's not good. And so yeah, that
was like Sunday at like 1 p.m.
Yeah, when the games were kicking off, it's like, hey, we fired the guy that everybody thought was the golden child of offense. So just let you guys know. Happy watching the games. Darius, what's your you got a best bet this week?
I mean, I'm not confident in any of these bets.
That's a great way to start.
I'm not very confident right now. Let me see. My best one would probably be. Nah, I can't even say that one. Let me go with. I'll go to the Rams. I go to the Rams -3 over the Vikings, just because of the whole situation in the NFC West. I was high on the 49ers coming out. Jimmy G's been playing lights out. You know, as soon as people start crowning and talking great about Jimmy G, he's going to go on primetime and stink it up. And he did. I think Rams, Stafford's been playing better as of late. And I think he goes out and gets a win and, you know, seals up this division against the Vikings today. So that would be one of my best bets. And then my dog of the day, I got the Lions covering today. They got a 7-point spread against the Falcons, so I think they cover.
Imagine the Falcons have a worse point differential than the Lions do. And they are 6-8. And
I think you just finished
they're
the
laying
red zone.
7. I mean,
QB wins, baby.
QB wins, baby. The Falcons game not going over last week like broke me a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
Do you think there's any ramifications to Darius?
I think he's trying to ram that pick down our throats.
Guts, glory, ram. I don't know. That's all I got. That's all that came to my head. All right, so he's got the Falcons. Wait, did you pick the
Lions? He's got Lions.
No, I got the Lions to cover.
Okay,
Yes.
He's got the Lions to cover.
Fighting Dan Campbell.
Do we agree with that?
I have a season win total over for the Falcons.
You're the oracle of the Lions because you picked the week that they were going to win. So now I have to go to you for all Lions.
I did. I mean, I think the Falcons win. I think the Lions do keep it within. I think the Falcons win in the most excruciating way possible.
Okay.
And so, like, Dan Campbell goes to what will end up being 10-5 against the spread.
Nice.
The guy's an MVP of and
Coach of the year.
Coach of the year.
Yeah. I mean, and look, if Darius, are you going to watch this game? Is this just a bet?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, yeah. Because honestly, to watch two noodle arms like Goff and Brian try to.
Tim, what did the line move from Goff to Boyle?
Oh, that's right. It's Boyle.
Yeah, it's Boyle.
This week. It did. It like so they opened. Lions were 5.5. It's now 7.
It only moved 1.5.
Yeah. I mean, have you seen Goff play?
Should it move more?
It's moving the opposite direction. At least, man, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't know what you got with Boyle. Could give him a spark.
Yeah, we saw him once this year. It wasn't pretty, but
Yeah.
I guess Goff hasn't been pretty.
All right, final thoughts before we get out of here, guys. Any notes we didn't hit on? Any
Round 2 of the fantasy playoffs. We've got championship Sunday next week. Can't wait. Great day to be great.
Very ugly week, but there are a bunch of games that have a ton of ramifications.
Stop.
Ravens, Bengals, basically deciding the AFC North. There's a path for the Browns, of course. Vikings, Rams. That's a huge playoff implication game, and obviously the game we just talked about, Buffalo versus New England. They might be some ugly games, but at least they'll matter.
Yeah, for
Sam?
sure. I like the Bengals covering though today.
I'm just excited to
Well,
see like how the NFL goes crazy this week. Every week there's some
Yes,
ridiculous
very
results
true.
that nobody sees coming that change everything. So what is it this week? I'm here for it.
That's very true. I think we're all here for it. Whether or not we're going to watch or not, we're going to see what the results are, and we're going to be back next week to talk about all of those results. For Darius Butler, for Sam Monson, Ian Hartitz, Eric Eager, I am Trevor Sikkema. Happy holidays, everybody. Enjoy the Sunday slate. We'll see you guys next week.